Welcome back. Growing tensions between Donald Trump and the Republican Party in the final weeks of the presidential campaign. 3 weeks to go. House Speaker Paul Ryan, who's had his differences with Trump, now being pressured to embrace a new strategy. Simply ignore Trump. Newt Gingrich is a former Speaker of the House, and he has a new novel out this week, a thriller entitled Treason. Newt, it's wonderful to have you back. Good to see you.
No, it's good to be with you, as always.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask you, last week we spoke when we were on the Fox Business Network together on the morning show last week, and you said to me, and this interview got a lot of pickup, there is little Trump and there is big Trump, and little Trump is pathetic. Who will we see Wednesday night?
I think you'll probably see big Trump. I think when he's disciplined, as he was last Sunday night, he's very, very formidable. And I think that he will probably rise to the occasion. I think he gets out there, frankly, with the crowds, and the crowds get all excited, and he gets all excited, and then he goes off script and he says something that would be fine if, you know, he wasn't running for president. But it makes no sense if he's running for president. And so I think you've got to really draw a distinction. I keep hoping that he'll decide that he's going to grow into being 100% big Trump. Right now he's about 80-20 or 85-15. And that last piece of the old private sector, I can say smart alecky things, really undermines his candidacy. It's the #1 reason he's not beating Hillary by 10 or 15 points, is that this particular part of his personality has not matured into being what we want in a president.
And I think, you know, his supporters just blow it off because they know he's not a politician. And they prefer having a non-politician rather than the same old corruption is how they see it.
Sure. And here's the challenge, Maria. He's already got a tremendous base. I mean, ABC just came out with a poll that said after an entire week of media smears, the total change was 2 percentage points. You, I think, just had a poll that shows he's he's ahead slightly in Ohio, despite everything that the news media did to smear him. So there's there's a very powerful base there. His challenge is there's another 10 or 15% that would be available. I mean, he really would grow as Reagan did in the last weeks of the campaign. Reagan moved suddenly and ended up beating Jimmy Carter by the largest electoral college defeat of any incumbent in American history. That all happened in the last 4 or 5 days of the campaign. To get to that point, Trump has to appeal to the next block of people. He's not going to lose 39, 40, 41% of the country. They're with him. They loathe Hillary Clinton. They believe she's totally dishonest. They believe any comment about sexuality when Bill Clinton's around is totally hypocritical. So they're not reachable by the news media. But the news media is trying desperately to convince the next 10 or 15% that Trump is unacceptable. And my good friend Barry Castleman wrote a piece on a news media coup d'etat, which is really worth reading, because last Friday, a week ago, the networks devoted 23 minutes to Donald Trump's tape and 57 seconds, all three combined, 57 seconds to the Wikipedia. You look at that bias, that is a deliberate effort by the establishment to undo the work of 14 million Republicans who nominated Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you make such a great point, and it's true. You know, I was looking at the Washington Post. I think it was the front cover on Friday, and every story was, or virtually every story was a negative story about Trump. Not one story about the WikiLeaks dump on Hillary Clinton on the front cover of the Washington Post. It actually is extraordinary what's happening with the mainstream media right now in terms of working for Hillary Clinton.
I think it would be better off just to describe them as left-wing propaganda. Skip the idea that they relate to the news. The news is the excuse for them to bring out propaganda. The Washington Post this morning has an article, front of its Outlook or opinion section, has an article on the GOP after Trump's defeat. Now, I mean, what kind of arrogance at a point when Trump's clearly within the margin of error in the ABC poll.
Yeah, and
what kind of arrogance?
You're right. You're right. I mean, they're just making the case and figuring that's the you know, they're going to write the script. Let me ask you this, because we got to get to the GOP unity or lack of unity. Mr. Speaker, what would happen if Paul Ryan were to just turn around and go all in on Trump? What would happen if John Kasich were to turn around and go all in on Trump and bring in their bases? I mean, could they lose the election for Donald Trump?
Yeah, the election will be over. I mean, the fact is, the morning that somebody like Ryan, Kasich's a harder sell just because he's, you know, off on his own, but Ryan's a serious institutional leader, and he understands and you'll notice the way he's been doing this. He understands that beating Hillary Clinton is essential to the future health of the United States because she is the most corrupt candidate we have ever nominated for a major office. So he understands he has to beat Hillary. But what he doesn't want his members to do is get all embroiled in trying to defend whatever Trump's latest goofy comment is. And so he's trying to walk a line of saying to them, look, be against Hillary, pick up everything Hillary's doing that's wrong. He himself came out this week with a very strong attack on the Clinton people over their anti-Catholic bigotry. And so you're going to see him do that. But he doesn't want his members to be sucked into the local reporter running in with whatever Trump said this afternoon and spending their time on that, because that may cost them moderate voters. Now, I do think if you look at the ABC poll, the margin difference in part is that Hillary's got about 8% more Democrats for her than Trump has Republicans. If you could have a Kasich, if you could have a Rye in the last 10 days coming in and saying, okay, look, every Republican has to vote for Donald Trump, I think that would, in fact, help guarantee a Trump victory. And frankly, I think he's very likely to win anyway.
I mean, I just wonder if they understand that if Donald Trump doesn't win, that people are going to remember that they had a chance, they had a window to actually help, and they didn't. And I think people are going to remember that, and they're going to be mad. Real quick, New, before you go, the WikiLeaks, the dump on Hillary Clinton's emails, John Podesta's emails, what do you think was most onerous? What was the worst out of the WikiLeaks? This stuff is getting buried by other stuff, and I want to make sure you tell us your standpoint, what you think is worst.
Very quickly, two different things. One was her secret speech to the Brazilian bankers for $225,000, where she says her dream, this is her word, her dream is of a Western Hemisphere without borders. That's 600 million people who could come to the United States. She has no idea what that means. It means MS-13 gangs from El Salvador, Mexican drug dealers, Colombian cocaine dealers. It means, for example, people in Haiti, where they have a $3 a day minimum wage, suddenly saying, gee, I could go to Miami and get $15 an hour?
Wow.
I mean, it would be unbelievable. The second one, though, I just saw this morning, there's an article which alleges that in the WikiLeaks, the Undersecretary of State attempted to bribe the FBI with additional posts overseas if they would cover up the classification of the emails. If that's true, that is a felony, and he should be prosecuted immediately.
That's incredible. Newt Gingrich, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. We so appreciate your time this morning.